Says, oh, here it is. Hi,
Hi.
everybody.
Hello. It was taking us a little while for our cameras to go on screen. So we want to welcome you if you're joining us. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Today, Brittany and I are going live to talk about whole foods and how to integrate those into your diet, why to use them. We're also going to be talking about some really cool recipes and really excited to have you here with us. So if you're joining us, say hi, wave to us. We're on Crowdcast Live, which is a channel that we've created there. So we'll share the link on Facebook here shortly. If you're on our Crowdcast channel and joining us, say hi as well. And we do have a button. You can follow us to get notifications of these events as we go live just before, about 10 minutes before they join. And we'll share that as well here shortly, how to follow us. So see who we have here. As far as joining, it looks like we have on Crowdcast Sharon, Ashley, and it looks like somebody are, it's abbreviated, so I'm not really sure. But hello, everybody. On Facebook, Brittany, is there any ads yet on there that you can see? Are we live
Uh,
there?
we are live. Sorry, that's why I was being a little quiet, guys. Hi, hello. Happy Wednesday. We actually, Brenda just got back from a support group. So that's why we had to push it back to 2 o'clock today from our regular 1. She's just been a jet setter this week. And then
Hey,
we'll both be in the office on Friday, too.
yeah,
So,
we may have to just pop in somewhere on maybe on Facebook or on one of those and
yeah,
say
and say hi
hi.
to everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we'll be
Um,
together.
I love when we finally get together and not just have this line between us, like video line.
I
Um,
know.
and we may even have some people from that support group. It was in Georgia. Um, I'm sorry, in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm setting up another one for Georgia right now, and my mind is getting merged into both of them. It was in Knoxville, Tennessee. So if you are from that group, wave and say hello because some of those people may be joining in as well. Um, I guess we'll just get started. So today, Whole Foods, and this is like such a perfect topic right now. I am almost like drowning in vegetables right now. Brittany knows I am
Yes.
definitely a gardener and I love my garden. This time of year, I'm kind of almost, it's kind of like, okay, I can see the side is ending here soon. You know, the vegetables are kind of like starting to taper off a little bit, but have so much. I set up a little stand in my front yard the last 2, 3 years, and me and my neighbor, his name is Lee, we pitch all of our extras in there, like anything that we're not using. And that stand has been pretty full, and it's been really rewarding because you can't always use everything you get. So tomatoes, cauliflower, cucumbers, squash,
Zucchini.
yellow squash, zucchini, peppers. He even had some cantaloupe and watermelon,
Ooh.
which he put in there. That is really good. It was like eating candy. That was so good. So all of these are considered whole foods and perfect topic this time of the year in the summertime when we have all of these things. Even if you don't have a garden, they're so readily available in the grocery stores. And what I have to say is, I don't know if you've noticed this, Brittany, but like honestly, they're so good when you buy them from the grocery store too because they're so fresh. You know,
Yeah.
they're in season,
Yes.
so they have a different texture, a different flavor, lots of good nutrients. So, anyways, we're just gonna kind of go ahead and go on. Stop me if I'm talking and there's any comments that you
Okay.
need to share with me because Brittany's always good about that.
And Brenda might have said this already, but if you guys are using Crowdcast and you want to use the Ask a Question button, that will actually help people who come back and rewatch these too, because it'll then timestamp when we asked or answered that question. Sorry. And then on Facebook, if you guys have any questions, if you just want to comment, I'll make sure that we are answering those as soon as we get them. So, yeah.
And you know what? I usually go ahead and put those in at the very beginning, but I have not done that yet. So I'm going to put them in as we're going, Brittany.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So yeah, the very first one is, what is a whole food? So let's kind of break it down. The difference between whole foods and processed foods. And honestly, sometimes there's kind of a gray line because even some whole foods may actually be a little bit processed, when you go to the grocery store. And there's nothing at all wrong with that. It's just kind of helping you to understand the more processed it is, the more different chemical changes it has, or the different processes it goes through. What can happen is it becomes more and more processed. And sometimes as you go through that, it can have a different chemical texture. It can have a different flavor. It can be maybe a little bit more or less healthy for your body, depending on how much processing. And so basically, I'm kind of pulling up my notes here. And Brittany, I know you have yours too pulled up. So understanding the differences between kind of like original food and how much of the original food is still present, and how many extra additives can help in choosing your foods. And Brittany, tell us, you had mentioned something on one of our previous broadcasts, and I kind of think it was when we were talking about
was it this, like with Amy?
It was about whole foods, but it was also about when we were talking about using foods to help heal the body and that type of thing. And you were talking about whenever an ingredient had the ingredient list.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes. So I think it was back when we were talking about, if you're new to this channel, Brenda and I are starting this fitness journey with our trainer, who's also a physical therapist, and her name is Amy. And we actually have a couple of live events coming up with her, too. Actually, I think our first one's next week, isn't it?
Yes.
So you guys will meet her very, very soon. But a couple things that she told me to do right from the beginning was A, my water intake, right? And B, just eating clean whole foods. And she asked me if I knew what that meant. And I thought that I did, and I gave her an answer, and she said, well, actually, no, it's when you look at a label and you see something on there that you don't know what it is, it's processed. It's not a whole natural food or clean food. And even packaging, and I don't know if this is what you're referring to or not, Brenda, but even packaging sometimes, especially now, they have buzzwords, I guess you could call them, that kind of trick the mind into thinking it's healthier than it really is. So, like, just because it says gluten-free, doesn't mean that it's healthy. It's still probably processed. Or what's the other ones too? Oh, no preservatives, all natural flavors.
Yeah.
Just because,
even like sugar and salt,
Yeah.
those type of things. I mean, those can be sometimes preservatives or things added just to kind of add flavor or colors, like
color,
dyes
yeah,
and
like
things
food
like that.
dyes. Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. And other a big one too is sweeteners. So what is that? Aspartame.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's tons of studies out there that can show what it can do, but even things like that have just like quote unquote fillers, I guess is a good word for it. It's just really good to check the label and make sure that you understand what you're eating on that packing slip, or that nutrition label is what you're putting in your body too. And if you don't know what it is, I mean, would you really want to put that in your body? Just the way that it's broken down and the way that Amy said it, I feel like it really clicked to me. Because, I mean, it's true. You don't know what half of those things are. Do you really want to put that in your body?
I guess it depends on how good it tastes,
Yeah, it's also true.
And what I want to say too is some of those things, help because they preserve the food to make it last longer. So whole foods can spoil a little faster,
Yes.
They also are often sold without packaging. Whole foods are usually without packaging, whereas processed foods a lot of times will be in some type of packaging. Um, and I hate to make things good or bad because there's a line. But yeah, you're right, Brittany. I mean, really, whenever you start really being very intentional about the things that you're
And
eating,
mindful, yeah.
really care about what you're eating, it does make you kind of think a little bit, especially some of those that have an ingredient list that's like this long. You look at the packaging and you're like, oh my goodness. Also, whole foods are typically found around the perimeter of the grocery store. When you go in, usually on the right when you enter, they're usually in a whole section by themselves. And grocery stores will really focus on that area, trying to get your interest because too, because shelf life is so short. If they don't sell those products fairly quickly, they spoil. So um, they have to kind of highlight them. And I would also say um, processed foods you'll usually find throughout the whole store. Usually um, you'll find them boxed, you'll find them on shelves. I also want to kind of talk about we talked a lot about fruits and vegetables earlier, but also meats. Meats are kind of in that category of whole foods.
Yes.
Um, and some people are vegetarian, so this may not include them, but meats wise, we're talking about like pork or beef or fish. So the less processing with those would be considered whole. And I also want to say, we have a dietitian that we work really closely with, and we've done a lot of lives with her. Her name is Katie Chapman, and we recently did one on protein, and we're going to be also doing a support group on protein sometime in the future, likely the beginning of next year. And when we talk about proteins and whole foods, there also are whole foods that are protein that aren't meats. And those are things like legumes, nuts, seeds. If you're a vegetarian, it may be a little harder sometimes to find um,
Protein.
whole proteins, right,
Yeah.
that are non-meat. So comment if you're a vegetarian or you eat mostly vegetables and you know of some good whole foods that are protein related.
And I also wanted to bring up dairy products too, because those can be processed too, right, Brenda?
Um, I'm adding that as a question. Are dairy products, what did you say? Are dairy products whole
Can
foods?
they be processed too, or are they considered whole foods?
Okay. So me and my husband just had, so are dairy products whole foods or are they considered processed? Me and my husband just had a long conversation about this because we were talking about dairy cattle, and him and we actually raise a few cattle, and we have some Holsteins, but we do not have any actual cows that you milk, if that makes sense. But he was telling me, I asked him what the filtration process is for milk because, when it hits the shelf, are you drinking straight from the cow or are you drinking something else? And
Right.
yeah, and so yes, it does go through a filtration process. It gets pasteurized, and what that means is it gets heated to a high temperature in order for the milk to be sold. So in that way, milk is considered, I would say it's considered a whole, maybe not food, but drink, but it's considered healthy and fairly close to the initial product. But to make it healthy and to make it less likely to cause someone to be sick, it is heated to a certain temperature. And he was telling me that some milk cows actually produce up to 10 gallons a day. If you've ever had the experience of being on a dairy farm, I lived, grew up with dairy cows before. We didn't have a huge farm where we sold to these dairies, but it is a very big commitment because they milk in the morning, you milk in the evenings. My dad told me whenever he was growing up, he had to go out and milk the cows before school. So he had to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, to do that. So I hope that answers your question, Brittany.
Yeah.
Kind of got a little
I wonder
off.
if anybody. Nope, no comments yet. Still either.
So is cooking a form of processing? Um, so is cooking a form of processing? And it is, but it's a small one. So, raw foods may hold more nutrients than what your cooked foods do, but cooking sometimes can enhance the flavor. It can kind of change, the overall food, sometimes even make it easier to digest. Things like broccoli or cauliflower, asparagus. In general, if you're wanting, the most out of the food as far as the raw nutrients, then yes, eating it uncooked may be your best bet. But if you have a hard time digesting, honestly, sometimes cooking can be a really positive thing too. For me, I don't do so well with eating certain raw foods, the ones that I mentioned. How about you, Brittany?
Um, it just kind of depends. Like I like some raw vegetables, but then there's like broccoli. I really like it cooked. I won't eat it raw. Same with cauliflower. I don't really like it raw very much. But I also wanted to say while we're on the topic of cooking and versus non-cooking, I've been throwing some trying to get a grocery list together for people who are in different phases of post-op. And I just wanted to say that be careful whenever you're eating raw vegetables or anything like that too, because it depends on what stage you're in. Your body might not be ready for that just yet. And some vegetables are harder to digest, like broccoli and cauliflower and I think Brussels sprouts too, because they're more fibrous.
Hmm. Excuse me, and they can cause extra gas in your stomach. So
Yeah.
that adds to filling up your stomach. You don't really think about it, but your stomach is so small after having weight loss surgery. So
Mm-hmm.
that extra air can actually be uncomfortable. And some programs will say, even adding air, such as through a straw or things like that, can cause discomfort.
And
Some
bloating.
programs, yeah, some programs don't really, aren't too mindful of that or concerned about that. But the air or gases from foods can contribute to extra air in the stomach too, as well. Um, and so, like when we're talking about whole foods, let's kind of go through a little bit of a list of animals and non in plants, I guess you might say. And so I have a little list here. I'm going to kind of read off this list. So cheeses, that's considered a dairy, and that is processed, but it is probably more of a whole food than a lot of other foods because the list isn't really long as far as the
Mm-hmm.
process. Again, it's probably pasteurized and it's churned and it's it's made from like milk products into cheeses. But fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans are all things, that kind of go into those categories. Animal products, we kind of talked about being like fish, pork, beef, um, deer,
Tur-
venison, that type of thing. So
and
anything you want to
turkey.
add to that? Oh, turkey. Yeah.
Turkey. I like using ground turkey in place of ground beef sometimes. It's a lot more leaner and it's just kind of a different taste, but you can for the most part you can season it any way you like and you can even make it taste pretty similar to beef. So,
Yeah. Um, I'm kind of just like looking here at my notes while we're talking. I would say that uh, turkey for a lot of people, they use turkey for things like turkey bacon,
mhm.
um, turkey sausage, like for patties and things like that. I think it probably has a little less fat than some of your pork products. Wouldn't you agree on that?
Yes. It's definitely a leaner meat. I've even heard of turkey broth too, which I've never tried it. I don't know if there's a difference between. I'm sure there is a difference between chicken and turkey, but I'm talking about more in like the taste aspect of it. And I know some people that actually have made homemade their own turkey broth as well too.
Hmm. And adding broths in, whether it be beef or chicken or
Or
um,
vegetable if you're a
yeah.
vegetarian.
Hmm. All of those things can be super healthy too, in adding them in to kind of make your food softer,
Mm-hmm.
adding them in with soups or adding them in with your meats, to kind of add extra juiciness, I guess. For people who've had bariatric surgery, when you eat something really dry, sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult to digest and
Yeah.
chew up and all of that. So, things that have those extra flavors. And honestly, beef, and I'm sure some of the other things, chicken and that type of thing, you can actually make like broths from them. Bone broth from
Yeah.
some of your beefs are supposed to be super healthy and have lots of extra added health benefits for your skin, nails, and all of that too as well. Um, the other thing that we didn't really talk about that I kind of want to bring up now
Mm-hmm.
is GMOs, and that's genetically modified organism components. So it could be, even if we're talking about, on the food labels, something being processed after it's grown, you also can have a little bit of processing, the way the fruit or vegetable is grown. Okay. And so if certain fertilizers are used with it, or certain chemicals, that can change the overall chemical compound of the thing too, being your fruit or your vegetable. Even some of your animals that you eat, some of them will have antibiotics
Mm-hmm.
given to them or not given to them. What they eat in the fields, grass fed versus corn fed, all of those things can make a difference. And I have to say, I'm not a real strong component of being totally without those things. And that's just a personal opinion. Some people are very strict about not about eating only organic things. But being that I have my own garden and being that we have our own cattle and things like that, sometimes if for example, your fruits and vegetables, if you're not putting anything on them, um, they can just about get eaten alive sometimes with some of those little squash bugs and some of the other things. And those things can leave a residue on your plants, and your vegetables as well. So I kind of
Yeah.
have mixed feelings about that. And then beef fed or corn fed calves versus grass fed. If you feed corn to an animal, they have a little bit more fat on them. Um, and I feel like a little bit more flavor. So that's definitely a opinion. Some
There's
people are
pros and there's
more,
cons, I feel
yes.
like. Yeah.
And you just have to decide what's best for you. That's not right or wrong. It's just what's right for you. I hope that I hope that makes sense. Do you have an opinion one way or the other on those type of things, Brittany?
Not really, and I also just want to say moderation, because if you go to the grocery store, sometimes you don't always have those organic options. So what are you going to do? I mean, are you going to go to another grocery store and keep going and going and going until you find the one that's organic, or are you just going to say, well, maybe just this one time, um, I'll buy this product even though it doesn't quote unquote say organic on it. I just think that moderation, really, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone's taste is different too. So you were saying like corn fed cattle taste a little bit better because there's a little bit more fat on it. It probably makes the meat a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Not leaner, but tender.
Yeah, it just kind of gives it a different flavor.
Yeah,
And again, this is an opinion. Some people may differ from my opinion, so
and
that's totally okay.
that's all I
Um,
was gonna say is that it's you gotta find what works for you and like moderation with
yeah.
everything, right?
Exactly. And one good thing that you can do, one thing Brittany knows, I have a passion for holistic stuff. And one of the things that I've studied is energy medicine. And foods and vegetables all have a certain energy. I'm going to call it vibration or frequency. And what happens is when that food is being made out in the garden and when the sun is shining on it, and all of that, it has a certain level of vibration and frequency. And so picking things that have higher levels can be best. Now, how can you do that without knowing how it was grown? And sometimes you can tell by looking at it, if it has a really bright color, if the texture looks shiny versus really dull, if if it's been ripened on the vine versus ripened in a greenhouse. Sometimes you can just tell. If you've ever bitten into a tomato that has been ripened either on the vine or on a picked just before it was ripened out in the sun versus kind of genetically modified so that it ripens more quickly, you can tell a difference in those type of things. And so just kind of even going into a store with the intention of buying things that are healthy for your body will help lead you to those foods that are best for you.
Another example that I heard of is you were talking about watermelon earlier, where have you ever seen one where it's kind of dull on like a certain spot of it? Like it looks more yellow and it kind of, maybe it looks a little caved in a little bit too, not too bad, but that's actually where it was laying on the ground. And I've heard, and I agree with this too because I've tried it, that the ones that have those spots on it taste the sweetest too. So just another
the spots on the bottom of it, like
yes,
where it was like laid and that type of thing.
Yeah.
The
ones like the watermelon that has those spots are sweeter, and it makes sense because it goes into what you were saying about the vibrations and the care that went into it.
I think with watermelon, being able to tell when they're ripe, the color, when it's the little vine as it's connected to the plant, when that starts no longer, when it starts drying up, that it's getting ripe. And that little spot that you were talking about, it's like a white spot on the bottom. That definitely is a good way to be able to tell if you have that white spot and the rest of the melon is all pretty colored. Also, when you knock on a watermelon, you've probably heard of this before, but if you knock
it sounds hollow.
It sounds hollow as opposed to being
like knocking on like a piece of wood or something.
Yes, it's not as solid. And cantaloupes are kind of like, you can tell with them with being ripe. Same, like on the vine, when the vine gets brown and it kind of dries up, it's time to be picked, and they get more soft. The whole watermelon, the whole cantaloupe gets a little softer now, and the color is a little bit more vibrant. It's more of a brighter or darker tan color, I guess. And if you get them too soft, though, then they're almost overly ripe. So there's kind of a mix there. The next thing I want to talk about is an example, and we kind of talked a little bit about this before. And Brittany, you were talking about making a shopping list. We are going to be doing, I'm really excited, probably in about 2 months, we've been preparing and working on a shopping list for people who, I'm going to take my jacket off, people who are fresh post-op, those first stages, and people who are further out. And we're talking, it's a little hard because every program, it has different types of phases, but we're going to be working on that, and that's something soon to come, and it will incorporate whole foods as well. But let's talk about the shopping list right now. So let's talk about fruits. So there would be things like berries, pears, peaches, pineapples, bananas, apples, oranges. What else? What are your favorites, Brittany?
In the fruits category, I love kiwi. That's probably my favorite. I don't like bananas as much, but I will eat it in a smoothie. I think it's just the texture when I'm eating it. I don't really like it. But I really like all of the berries. Strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, blueberries. Those are probably my favorites.
And so fresh versus frozen, that's something to kind of consider. And I love that you brought up the making the shakes because, that's one great way to get in a lot of fruits and vegetables because you can pile in there. We're going to talk about vegetables, kale. You can pile in there spinach, other types of different kinds of really leafy greens. Even such things, if you have a garden, even such things as beet leaves. Trying to think, there's so many. sweet potatoes, you can put in sweet potato leaves. I mean, the sky's the limit on leaves. Those things can be really helpful in shakes because they add extra nutrients and antioxidants. But vegetables also, you can buy frozen or fresh there too as well. In both of those, I would consider both of those very much whole foods because they're
Oh,
very
yeah, I
much
agree.
unprocessed.
And just because it's frozen doesn't mean that it lacks the nutrients or anything. It's just and it's kind of nice because then you don't have to worry about it spoiling as quickly. And we talked about this last week with Dr. Susan Mitchell too about putting spinach and kale into your smoothie. And someone asked, "Well, I don't like the taste of kale or spinach." Well, and that's fine, but there's a lot of nutrients in that, and if you blend it up, you can't really taste it.
Hmm.
Especially if you mix it with fruits or I'm sorry, other fruits that have a lot of juices in it, like say pineapple juice or orange juice or and just a little bit. You don't need a whole lot of that juice because there's a lot of sugar in those things too, so you don't want to put too much sugar in your smoothie because then it's not that healthy at the end of the day, I guess. But my point is that you can't really taste it. All it does is it makes it green and it gives you all those nutrients too, so it's really good. Just try it.
Try it. Yeah,
Try
just
it.
try it. How about whole grains? So when we're talking about that, what would you suggest in that category, Brittany? I have some ideas there, but
Whole grains. So like brown rice, probably. We like quinoa a lot. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I've heard it pronounced quinoa or something like that. But quinoa and gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the other ones. Maybe
like barley or rolled oats. You think?
rolled oats. I was gonna say steel cut oats is a big one in our house too. I don't know if there's really a difference, but
And how about legumes? This is one of my favorites, like chickpeas
oh, I
or
love chickpeas.
lentils, peanuts, black beans, those type of things. You can actually even take chickpeas and roast those in the oven. And we're gonna be sharing a recipe here in just a few moments that introduces some whole foods and some of those type of whole products, the legume family, into recipes. So
What about
some
healthy fats, though?
healthy fats, avocado, olive oil, coconut oil. Um, have you ever tried coconut oil before?
I have not really in cooking. You guys are gonna think I'm crazy. Have you ever made like your own hair mask at home?
I've not done that, but I've used coconut oil for my skin before,
Yeah,
and it's really good.
same thing for your hair too.
Really?
I don't really like the taste of coconuts. That's why I wouldn't. Me personally, I don't know if I would use it for cooking. I love olive oil though, and actually, at some stores you can even buy avocado oil, and it's
Mm.
really good for cooking too. And it's pretty similar to olive oil, I would say actually.
It's weird because I never really liked avocado oil that much, and then I shouldn't say avocado oil, olive oil, and then I got
Oh,
used to cooking with it. Now I can't hardly cook without it. I love it so much. Coconut oil, when you cook with it, you just have to be super careful because it has a very, very low temperature in which it gets very hot. So
yeah.
like when you're cooking with it, it can burn more easily because you just have to turn it just a little bit for it to get very, very hot and cook your stuff. So how about unsweetened plant-based milks? So like coconut milk or almond milk, cashew milk, any of those. Those are all
I
considered whole foods.
Yeah, I don't eat or I don't drink regular milk. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. I just don't like the taste of it. So I prefer almond milk for everything and all of my cooking. And I'm not really a cereal person, but I make overnight oats sometimes, and that's what I'll use is almond milk. And any recipe that calls for milk, you can use the same thing. And it's a nice
Mhm.
alternative for people who are lactose intolerant too.
Mhm. And you can make those with your smoothies too. Like if you have a
Yes.
problem, especially right after surgery, sometimes people will have issues with being able to have what did you just say? I've got the word right.
Lactose
Lactose.
intolerant.
They have
Yeah.
intolerance. Yeah. How about spices and herbs? So to me, you can get a lot of those that are whole foods. So like rosemary, turmeric, basil, oregano, parsley, chives. All of those can have a whole health benefit too, as well.
Cilantro is my favorite personally.
Oh, I love cilantro.
And
I really love
actually,
it.
last I keep talking about last week with Dr. Susan Mitchell, but a lot of those spices and herbs and seasonings, um, they're really easy to find right now. But also, it helps with inflammation too. That's what
Yes,
we
yes,
talked
because we
about.
just talked about that. And when we're talking, we also did a live on, and I'm trying to remember the name of the one where we talked about infusion of your
Oh, the
waters.
detox. Yeah, I will go ahead and get both of those links together in case anyone's watching these and you want to watch that. I'll put
Yeah,
both of them. I'll put the one with Dr. Susan Mitchell, and then I will also put the one with the detox recipe.
perfect. Will you share our channel too, Brittany,
Yes.
for us? Okay, perfect. Um, and then tofu, plant-based protein. So we kind of talked a little bit about this earlier. Tofu, um, other things like that. I don't even know if I've ever tried tofu before, but some people really use that as part of a staple for their proteins. And then beverages, we talked about things that are not really processed, that are considered more whole foods. Teas, maybe an example of that. There's not a whole lot of processing with those. Even coffee, really, there's not a whole lot of processing. And some of your waters that you infuse fruit in, and you leave them overnight, which we were just talking about. Eggs, eggs are really not processed. There's sometimes they're cleaned to be put in the cartons. We have a lot of neighbors that have eggs, and so my husband was complaining the other day. He's like, "These eggs haven't been washed," because a lot of people who
They don't
who have
wash them.
chickens, they just put them in the cartons. You
Yeah.
get the cartons, and
I
it doesn't matter to me because I just am really careful whenever I break them open,
right. Yeah.
and they're supposed to last longer when they're not washed too.
So that's what I've heard. So a lady I used to work with before I worked with ProCare Health, she had a bunch of chickens. Her and her husband did, and she would actually just like, well, she would sell them to people at work, but
Mhm.
she would just keep them under her desk. And I asked her, I was like, "Aren't those bad?" And she said, "Well, no. When they're fresh eggs like this, you don't have to actually refrigerate them until after you wash them." I guess there's some kind of membrane that kind of protects the shell. And also, I wanted to say that I was always one of those people that was like, have you ever heard like fresh farm eggs are way better, just taste better than the eggs that you would buy at a grocery store?
Mhm.
I always said that's bull. It's like that. There's no way that's true. Well, now we are doing. We're buying fresh eggs again from someone that Zach actually works with, and you can tell a difference. They're more meatier, like they're bigger, and they taste different. I don't know how to explain it. They taste better. But if you think I'm crazy, go try it. I'm not kidding.
Oh, I love it. And Scotty says I get fresh eggs all the time. I only wash them when I am about to use them.
That's what I
That's
do, Scotty.
true.
Yeah, I made an
That's
omelet this
true.
morning and I used 2 eggs and they're dirty in the carton right now in the refrigerator and I just wash them as I use them.
So how do you wash them?
I just take cold water and just kind of
You
like,
just kind of rinse them off.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
I'll take like if there's extra, not to be gross or anything, but if there's extra gunk on it, I'll take a wet paper
Mhm.
towel and like, wash it off.
Wipe it off a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that she says I use a veggie wash, and I almost wonder
I wonder
for
what
all my
that is.
vegetables. I don't know, but I know for all my vegetables, before I do anything with them, I do a wash with water and vinegar. I wonder if you could use that same as I use with my vegetables. I don't know.
You
I'd have to
probably
Google it.
could.
But yeah, vinegar kills germs. we we just did a whole house redo, and we used vinegar. We used probably 10 gallons of vinegar as we were cleaning this house. Vinegar is so amazing. I love vinegar. It works for
I
everything.
just don't like the smell of it. Is my only
Oh, but
complaint.
I'm telling you, it gets shit off everything. Excuse my language. It works for everything, and it's pH balanced to help kill bacteria. Um, and fresh eggs. I want to say one other thing. The
Vinegar
sense
and
of them.
water is what
Oh,
Scotty
she
said
did the
she
water.
uses. Yeah.
Okay, great to know. I'm going to use that with my eggs. Thank you for that. That's so helpful. Um, Farm eggs, the yolks are so much more yellow too. Have you noticed that?
And I think
And they're
that's what
not.
I meant by like they're more meatier. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like the
yeah.
consistency is like thicker. Whereas like you might eat 3 eggs, you'll probably only need 2 for this and you I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
people think I'm crazy, I know, but
Okay, well, let's see here. Let's finish that question. Now we are going to go into some recipes. I'm going to put what is a recipe so we can timestamp this recipe for sesame quinoa or quinoa. That's how I say it.
quinoa.
Quinoa
Quinoa.
bowl. And what is a recipe? Um, what is a
I'm
Sorry,
gonna
it's taking me a second.
post.
What is a recipe for taco salad? Shellless. We'll do shellless. So let's go to the quinoa first, and I'm just gonna pull up. You know what, Brittany? I'm gonna share my screen,
Okay.
and let's see here. So I'm gonna go share my screen. Here we go. And guys, these are actually handouts that you guys can access on our ProCare Health website. Brittany's posting the links to those. So the
Mm-hmm.
very first one, and I'm going to make this pretty big so that you can see it. Can you see that, Brittany, on my screen by chance? The Sesame Quinoa Bowl. I think she's got herself muted.
I said no, I cannot actually.
Okay,
I
let's try it
I
again.
did actually have myself muted.
Okay, share, and we're going to go up to this. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, Sesame Quinoa Bowl. There's a little picture of it here on the right. Basically, this only takes about 6 minutes prep time. We're cooking, and I wanted to be able to make both of these for our live today, but I was limited with time because, of course, like we talked about, I did a support group, and my travel time I got here just right before this live started. So the Sesame Quinoa Bowl has quinoa. Okay. And I have a little asterisk there as you can, let's see, to cook it, it has a little instruction list. Basically, you're going to kind of rinse it off if it hasn't been done that yet and just kind of make it like you would rice, put it in a bowl. Usually quinoa, when you buy it in the store, it will have directions on the bag too as well. So I would just use your package instructions. And this recipe calls for asparagus. Now, if you're not a huge asparagus fan, you could leave that out or you could add that. And then also leafy greens. So whatever you have on hand, spinach, mustard greens, arugula, whatever is handy or that you actually like the flavor of. You can also use broccoli, a little olive oil, garlic. You and I, Brittany, have talked about ginger before. This recipe calls for peeled ginger, coarsely grated. I want to try that so bad because I have not tried fresh ginger before. Soy sauce, sesame oil, some sriracha. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Garlic, chili paste, either one. Cashews and black sesame seeds. And basically what you're going to do is heat the olive oil, add the garlic and ginger, add the vegetables and the greens and cover and just until those are wilted for about 2 to 3 minutes. Excuse me. And then add in the soy sauce, sesame oil, and the chili paste. And You can kind of taste it for flavor. If you need more soy sauce or sesame oil, you can always add those in, and then top it with some nuts like cashews or sesame seeds. Some extra variations for this recipe: butternut squash, carrots, tomatoes, chickpeas. All of those things again are in season right now. Fresh, fresh, fresh. Avocado. Honestly, that would be so good to add that. I would add it after you've already cooked it. Just add it kind of fresh
Yeah.
to the side. What do you think, Brittany?
Yeah, because so avocado is kind of one of those weird vegetables. Is it a fruit or vegetable? Well, that's a
Oh, that's a
debate.
great question.
That's a debate for another day. But anyway, it's one of those weird foods where it's not very good if you cook it. It gets mushy and brown, and it loses its texture and flavor. It's much better just cut up and eaten kind of fresh, like it is. I will say though that recipe sounds really good, and when you put the avocado on top, you could even put cut out a little fresh lime and put some lime juice on top of it, and I feel like that would be delicious.
Or your cilantro.
Or cilantro, yeah.
Oh my God,
Or
that
both.
would be good. Or both. And you can add extra things like black beans or chickpeas. You can add extra meat like chicken or beef if you'd rather have beef. Baked tofu is a great alternative if you're one person that likes those if you like more of a vegetarian type of dish. So that looks so good. It's making my mouth water. I may just have to make this tonight for dinner. I think I might. The other recipe that we have is just following that is a taco salad, and it's a shell-free taco salad that's high in protein, high in fiber, and has lots of different kinds of extra added nutrients like the avocado, corn, and beans. And this one here, prep time is 15 minutes. Total time is about 25. Packs a lot of like I said, the protein. So if you're making it for bariatric size, you're probably going to use more of the 8 serving size here for the recipe. And that would be about 25 grams of protein, 13 grams of carb, and 14 grams of fat. Probably a lot of that is the avocado, to be honest with you, because it doesn't have a lot of extra
healthy fat, though.
Yes. So the taco salad, I'm going to kind of pull this up here, and I have the ingredients for that. And you can improvise, with these recipes that we share on here. Use what you have in your cabinet and get creative. You may add some things or subtract some things off of this, but basically what you're going to do is use some seasonings and some olive oil. So you're cooking I'm going to look down here at the recipe. It's using a little of the olive oil to cook your meat, whether it be turkey, beef, or chicken. You may not even need that if you have one that has a little bit less. It's a little less lean, I guess. And then salt and pepper. And then I love, and Brittany, I don't know if you've ever done this before. I almost always make my own taco seasonings now because my husband. He doesn't like he's sensitive to, and I'm going to say it probably is the MSG that's added to a lot of those seasonings, but I almost always make my own taco seasoning. And usually it's chili powder, ground cumin, garlic, salt and pepper, paprika. That's not on this recipe, but I even add paprika in that. And then you start adding in your vegetables. So romaine lettuce, cooked beans, cooked corn, tomatoes. Here we have the avocado, those cilantro leaves, green onions. And then optional is cheese. If you like a little extra cheese on there, you can do that. For the dressing, and this is something that I have done so much. I don't know if you've ever made your own salsa dressing, but you take salsa and Greek yogurt, or instead of the Greek yogurt, you could substitute a ranch dressing that you make yourself. You could either use it in a package like you buy at the store, or you can actually just buy already prepared ranch dressing. And if you are kind of watching calories and you want something lower fat, you can use a low fat version. But oh my God, it's so good. Have you ever tried that before?
Yes, so in the little packages, I believe it's in the seasoning aisle, like where you would
Uh-huh.
buy all of those seasonings that you were talking about. It comes in a little packet. It's basically dried ranch, and instead of using the whole package, I'd say probably half of it, and then
Mm-hmm.
I mix it with Greek yogurt, and you guys, it tastes just like ranch dressing, and it's way better for you too.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more protein in Greek yogurt too, and you can get low-fat Greek yogurt too. It's just such a
Yeah.
healthier option than getting that already bottled Hidden Valley Ranch or whatever. But just use half the packet though. You don't need to use
And
the
the
whole
vanilla
kind.
flavor. Wouldn't you say like are the unflavored like I call it vanilla, but the type that
Oh,
doesn't have any kind of
y-
flavoring in it.
yeah, and that's honestly that's what I buy because it's so versatile. I buy the big tub of it, and it's just plain low fat Greek yogurt. There's so much protein in Greek yogurt, you guys. And what's nice is that you can use it for a sour cream alternative. You can make your own dressings with it. Like a couple weeks ago, Zach and I, my husband and I, were making dinner, and I bought some sriracha, and I mixed the sriracha with the Greek yogurt, and it was a spicy sour cream, basically, that
Mm.
I put on top of a salad. It was kind of like and honestly, that would be good on top of this too, is some sriracha or
Mhm.
hot sauce, whatever you have, and just mix it up. And experiment with Greek yogurt because there's a million things you can do with it.
Yes.
I mean, you can even make, I know this
100%
is off
agree.
topic, but you can make like parfait bowls. Um, just drizzle a little bit of honey or, like you were saying, some vanilla. You could make your own vanilla too. Just put a couple drops of vanilla extract and kind of whip it together
Mhm.
and put some fresh berries on top. That would be a really good whole food breakfast too.
Um, One other thing that you can mix with Greek yogurt, and it looks really disgusting, but it is so good, is cottage cheese and fruit.
Ooh,
I
I'll
know
have to try that.
it sounds really weird, but
No,
it is really, really good. And
I'll have to try
you get
that.
in extra protein that way too. And
Yeah.
I've done that for breakfast as well. So you can actually make this, you can store the meat in the refrigerator for up to 4 days, the corn and black beans for 4 days, the dressing for 4 days, the tomatoes 3, some of the other vegetables like the lettuce and that type of thing for 2 to 3 days. So if you want to keep it separated out so that it doesn't get mushy and you want to like meal prep, you can do that with this recipe. So this recipe, again, we'll share. I think Brittany has shared the link, and I'm going to stop
Yeah.
sharing my screen because we're almost out of time. We try to limit these to about an hour so that we can post to different social media forums that require us to be under an hour. And so, anybody else want to add anything? Because we do have a couple minutes left. Anybody else want to
Um,
comment on a favorite whole food recipe or something that they absolutely love that they want to share that pertains to this?
I don't see any comments on Facebook just yet, but I also just wanted to say that these recipes are really nice too, the ones that we just shared with you guys, because it's something that the whole family can eat, you know? I know
Even
some
if you have picky
people,
eaters, you
yeah,
know?
just make everything separately and kind of have like a taco salad station, if you will, and then everybody can pick what they want to put on there. Like if you have, kids that don't like lettuce or whatever, um, they can pick and choose what they want on there. And
Well,
then
last
that way
night,
you're still staying healthy and they're still getting what they want too. So,
absolutely. Yeah, when we like last night, I was talking about the support group that I did. It was on
hmm
relationships. And I think people, after they have weight loss surgery, a lot of times, one of the hardest things that people go through as far as relationships with their family and so forth is food preparation.
yeah,
Because what happens is they get home and they think, okay, I have to eat a certain way, and my family is not going to want the same foods that I am. But that's not necessarily true. When
no,
you start cooking with some of these things, you're going to find that the more that you use them in your what you offer, the more that your family is going to be attracted to those things because the more you serve them, the more that they are going to get used to having whole foods and that type of thing. It's we think that our kids and our husbands, or if you're a wife or partner or whoever, you think that they may not like those kind of things, but honestly, you never know until you try. And you
Yeah.
don't have to cook 3 different meals.
No.
Like you said, Brittany, I love that. Having like a little taco bar, or like with the quinoa bowl, you could mix. You could kind of keep some of those ingredients separate too, and just
Yeah.
allow people to add. Because there is restaurants. I'm trying to think of the name of one of them that make like protein bowls, and you go up and there's like a bar where you just you tell them what you want out of those different items, and so that's kind of like the same kind of concept with the bowl as well. You wouldn't have to mix it all up, and you can just let people add what they wanted to add. Stays a little fresher too.
Yeah.
So I think that's all we have. Brittany, you have anything else?
Nope.
No. Okay. Well, I guess we're gonna cut it off here. Please, if you haven't already, like I said, follow us on Crowdcast and kind of be part of our lives that we do. You'll get notifications if you follow us. And I think Brittany added the link previously.
I'm doing it right now.
Oh, she's adding it. So we'll have that on both forums. And we look forward to seeing you again. And thank you, all of you who've joined us today and been a part of today's program. We love you,
All right.
and enjoy the rest of your week.
And next week we are back at 1.
Yes. Next week we're back at 1, and this week on Thursday night we have a support group, and our support group is I'm looking right now. I think it is on mindfulness. Pretty sure.
It's at 5 p.m.
It's at 5 p.m. on Thursday.
Central time.
And it's on mindful eating practices. So we'll be talking about basically, kind of a lot of the same concepts as we're talking about today. Let me go down to my little description. So basically, getting rid of like the feelings of guilt, shame, unsatisfied desire, and really start focusing on, what you do want, and maybe establishing more harmony and peace with the foods that you're putting in your body. So kind of goes with this topic as well. So hopefully we'll see you on Thursday night next week. In the meantime, thank you so much for being a part of this, and have a great rest of your week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.